Now, I want to talk about my way too early top 10. I'm going to preface this by saying I have a way too early top 25 as out on foxsports.com that you can go check out. But we're going to go through the top 10 here, and I'm going to go number 1 to number 10. And if you watch Joel on the CFP on Fox Tailgate, you'll see there's a lot we have in common here, okay? So number 1, I got Alabama. I put a premium on returning starter quarterbacks. And if Jamison Williams does decide to return, as I mentioned, that's an argument for the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the sport. I also think Will Anderson is that dude, just like you. And I think he's going to be a front runner for every Defensive Player of the Year honor there is, and could have the kind of season that Chase Young had in 2019 at Ohio State. Speaking of Ohio State, you'll see it number 2. I got Ryan Day in Ohio State on the strength of that Rose Bowl win, but also on the strength of his hires here recently, right? He replaces his offensive line coach with UCLA's offensive line coach. I believe it's Justin Tinsley. I got to go check that out. But I know it's the UCLA offensive line coach. Then, before that, he hires former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles to be his defensive coordinator. And that's the one that Buckeye fans are very excited about because their defense was boo-boo to start the season. Kerry Combs accepts the demotion. Matt Barnes starts calling the plays. They got a little bit better against not-so-good teams and then got run on by Michigan. That can't happen if you're an Ohio State fan. That has to change. And then you saw Jim Knowles and that Oklahoma State defense really were carrying Oklahoma State to the second best season in their school's history on top of being able to run the football, right? So that 4-2-5, I think, is going to work for them. I think they have athletes in place. They already added Tanner McAllister from Oklahoma State as a safety as a transfer portal grab. And I think that if he gets them going, Ryan Day's offense is going to be Ryan Day's offense because you understand C.J. Stroud is that dude, right? He broke records that were held by Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins in his only season as a starter. He returns Jackson Smith and Jigba, who had 347 receiving yards in an outstanding Rose Bowl game against Utah. That is the all-time bowl record, and that dude was the number 3 wide receiver on Ohio State's depth chart last year, even if you believe that he was the more talented of the 3 that included Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, who will likely be first-round draft picks in April, right? Add to that, Trayveon Henderson is 7.5 yards deep, and that guy is an absolute freak show. Hand him the football as often as you can. You're going to put up 40. It's about can you stop people. Number 3, we talk about Texas A&M. If Max Johnson, LSU transfer, or Haynes King, who's coming back from injury, are good at quarterback, Texas A&M should be great. And that's a very big deal for A&M because outside of Georgia winning a national championship, the program that has been starved for the longest amount of time and feels like they should have been there for the longest amount of time is Texas A&M. They feel like they should have won a national championship since 1939 and haven't. That means A&M has not won a national championship since before World War II. Add to this, they have not won a conference championship in this century. You got to go back to 1998 in the Big 12 for the last time that A&M won a league title of any kind in football. Now, you return dudes. Like you lost Isaiah Spiller, fine. You got Aeneas Smith coming back. Put Aeneas Smith in the backfield if that's what you want to do. But also, you're adding an outstanding true freshman class with this signing class. Last year, I was yelling and screaming because Alabama set the record for the highest ranked recruiting class in rankings history. I mentioned A&M broke that record this year. They're studly. They're good. And remember, this is me talking. A&M fans and I got history. I'm telling you, you're one of the 3 best teams in college football in my way too early top 10. Number 4, I got Georgia. I don't know about quarterback, right? I'm still sort of skeptical about how you're going to replace that front 7, which was elite and uncanny. Jordan Davis is a monster. Okay? Nakobe Dean's a monster. Channing Tindall's a monster. I'm also skeptical about what you're going to do at defensive coordinator. I think Dan Lanning had that job for a reason, as opposed to Glenn Schumann, who was also up for that job the last time they lost a coordinator. I believe that was Mel Tucker, who took the Colorado job at the time. I just have questions to answer, but I still think you're one of the 4 best teams in college football, and you're the reigning national champion. So if you have a problem with it, that's fine. I'll take that. Send all shade to @RJ_Young on the Twitters. Number 5, I got Michigan. Look, man, this is contingent upon Jim Harbaugh still being the head coach. If he's not the Raiders head coach or whomever's head coach in the NFL in the next few days. It's also contingent on J.J. McCarthy being your starting quarterback, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards being your 2 bell cow backs in the backfield the way Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum were for much of the year in 2021, and throwing Andrell Anthony the ball in addition to Eric All, right? I have questions about how Mike Macdonald is going to replace the dynamo that is Dax Hill at safety, but they can do it, right? They recruit well. They play great defense. It's a good staff. They remain intact. And you ought to feel good as the defending Big Ten champion going into next season. So those are my top 5 teams headed into 2022. Let's talk about 6 through 10. Okay? At number 6, I got Sam Pittman and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Those of you who have been following me on this journey for a long time know that I have believed in Sam Pittman from the jump. I really loved the hire, and I loved how enthusiastic he was about being Arkansas's head coach. Going back to his introductory press conference, that man was tearing up because it meant so much to him that the folks at Fayetteville tapped him and accepted him. And he has done nothing but throw his heart and soul into the Hogs program, and it is paying dividends, okay? They go into the Outback Bowl, and they beat a really good Penn State team. They return KJ Jefferson at quarterback, and while they lose their number 1 wide receiver, they add Jaden Hazelwood, who was a 5-star, the number 1 wide receiver coming out in 2019, to their wide receiving core, coming from Oklahoma. Kendall Browse's offense goes fast. They want to score some points, but more importantly, Barry Odom's defense continues to, for the most part, keep people from scoring. I love the way they deploy their linebackers. They're getting guys back that I thought might be eligible for the NFL draft and should go. But I'm here, right? I'm here with Arkansas. It means that I have not 1, not 2, but 3 SEC West teams inside my top 6. So it's going to be stout. And I think Arkansas can finish as a top 10 team and still be the 3rd best team in all of the SEC West. Like, it's bonkers, but it's been done before, right? 2011 being that year, Alabama, Arkansas, LSU were all pretty doggone good. Number 7, I got Baylor. That is the defending Big 12 champ and the Sugar Bowl champ. Because, A, Dave Aranda has had a turnaround of turnarounds. 2020, they won 2 games. They were 2-7. 2021, 12-2. Big 12 champs. They beat Oklahoma, and they beat Oklahoma State in succession, and then beat Ole Miss, right? While also surrendering like 1 touchdown in the Sugar Bowl. And I think they did this without the better of the 2 quarterbacks starting the game. Because Jerry Bohannon couldn't go in the Big 12 championship, we got to see Blake Shapen show out. And had he been ready to go, I think he might have given them an even larger scoring margin, because I just think he's a better quarterback than Jerry Bohannon was, especially based on what we saw in the Big 12 championship game. And then Dave Aranda is keeping both of his coordinators, right? He's getting dudes back in Rob Roberts and in Jeff Grimes that I think were integral to the turnaround and who want to be in Waco. And they've been able to keep him in Waco, and they've recruited well. They develop well. He's got a culture there that they can sustain. I expect them to be in the Big 12 championship game next year, if not defend, if not push for the college football playoff in 2022. And number 8, you'll see I got Notre Dame. I loved elevating Marcus Freeman to head coach. I loved even more Marcus Freeman being able to hold on to Tommy Rees. That means your 2 coordinators are intact. It means you have a nucleus of young, hungry coaches that are already recruiting the hell out of this sport for Notre Dame. You lose Kyle Hamilton, right? An All-American safety, a first-round draft pick. You replace him with Brandon Joseph, who's an All-American defensive back at Northwestern. Like, you're already filling in some gaps there. You saw what Chris Tyree was capable of in the Fiesta Bowl, right? Like, I love that tailback. I get that Oklahoma State had a game of games in there, but I'm also looking at what the Irish have done and what they're set up to do. And I really like what they are and what they can be in 2022. Number 9, I got Utah. I was big on Utah to start last year, and then they dipped and they came back up, right? And I feel outside of Salt Lake City, Utah just doesn't get the kind of recognition that they deserve to get. They're tough. They play hard-nosed defense. They love to be physical in the trenches. Kyle Whittingham has been able to work through quarterbacks, find a guy that works, find a guy like Tyler Huntley a few years back, starts the season with Charlie Brewer, ends with Cam Rising, gets Tavion Thomas going, right? Finds guys. And he got punt returns out of a 34-year-old. Like, I'm still trying to get my head around how long my man has been playing football. I'm going to look him up here in a second. But I'm thinking about what Kyle Whittingham has been able to do with parts that nobody's really talking about. Going back to 2008 when they beat Alabama and they were undefeated. Nobody wanted to hand them a national championship game. Nobody gave them a chance in the Rose Bowl. They were there. I think if he uses timeouts, they get more opportunities to try to stop C.J. Stroud and them, or get Noah Ruggles to at least kick a longer field goal, and perhaps they can win that football game. All right, number 10, Michigan State. For me, can you replace Kenneth Walker III? I think you can. They go into the transfer portal. They bring out Jalen Berger, who I thought was going to be the starter at Wisconsin this year. Now, I was wrong about that. Ches Malusi shows up, and then later, Braylon Allen. Good God, man. Like, you're going to hear for, I don't know, ever, that dude's a teenager because he squats 600 pounds and nobody can tackle him. Like, he's a Wisconsin tailback. Like, when you think about a Wisconsin tailback and you think about how they want to play offense, that's the kind of guy I think that is going to take over your brain. Jalen Berger goes to Michigan State where they want to run the football, where they want to feature tailback, and I think that if Peyton Thorne ends up being that dude, they're going to be okay. Scotty Hazelton, I still think, is a great defensive coordinator. Wasn't great last year. Certainly his secondary could be better, but I trust him and Mel Tucker to figure those things out. All right, for the rest of my top 25, head over to foxsports.com where you can read what those teams are and why I put them where I put them. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.